I'm your host, David McClement, broadcasting from the Blantyre Free State. Sir Keir Starmer was branded a Margaret Thatcher fanboy by a Tory MP after he lavished praise on Margaret Thatcher for effecting meaningful change in Britain. Writing in the Sunday Telegraph, the Labour leader said Thatcher had set loose her natural entrepreneurialism during her time as Prime Minister. The remarks were described as an insult to working class Scots. Welcome to Holyrude Ungagged, the Matt O'Reilly of political podcasts. Season 7, Episode 1. I am your host, David McClement, broadcasting for the Blantyre Free State. And this week we have joining me the mother of Holyrude Dog of the Year nominee, Heidi, the pride of Mulgai. It is Deborah Torrance.
Hello.
Not that you need any introduction. As a Holyrude OG, anybody that's listened to the show knows exactly who Deborah is.
OG crew. Doing the mentions.
Season 7, we've had a wee extended break in between seasons. So how have you been?
I've been good. How are you? I thought you'd forgot how to podcast there. There was a very long pause when we began.
I just noticed something in my screen and it distracted me. I was thinking about whether to actually bother changing it, but it doesn't really matter, so I'll just carry on.
It's good to be back. I feel like I'm at an interview though, because it's just me and you.
Well, I hope you get the job.
Oh, thanks. I hope you get the job. Maybe I was doing the interviewing. You didn't. I was very presumptuous there, David.
I think we know. So what have you been up to? Let's say it's been a couple of months since we podcast. I don't think I've seen you in that time, so how's things?
Very good. I went to Skye and I kept singing the song Over the Sea Sky, which my girlfriend loved in the 5-hour journey. Beautiful place. Very far away. Like Arran's much closer. So that's all I'm saying in the islands of Scotland. I've also been doing some gardening, planting up some chilies, trying to grow some jalapenos and some cayenne peppers. I don't know. How do you say that? Is it cayenne? Cayenne?
Cayenne, I think. Well, that's how I say it. Maybe I'm wrong.
That's how they say it in Blantyre. Cayenne. Since we've got global warming, I thought I'd give a wee shot, put them in a greenhouse, see how we get on.
So when was this? Did we get any results yet? Is it too early?
No, they're just wee babies.
I never really quite get the whole like growing stuff in your garden. Like I like the idea of it, but it's a thing of scale. It's like I see people like growing potatoes, and it's like they spend 3 months growing potatoes, and then it's to get enough potatoes to make one meal, and it doesn't seem a real worth it for the fact you get a bag of potatoes for 99 pence. You know,
I just like it. I like getting my hands dirty. I know that sounds so like cliche, but it is. There's something dead therapeutic about putting stuff in the mud and then becomes a living thing.
Recently in TikTok, I keep getting the algorithm keeps showing me videos of this guy that's farming rabbits.
Wow.
And how like rabbits, you get £300 of meat a year for farming rabbits. How easy it is, and it's like the most, bang for your buck in terms of how much meat you produce.
I don't know. Are they nice? I don't think I've ate rabbit.
Oh, rabbit's really nice. Never. I'm kind of surprised with how many people don't eat rabbit. It's like, but rabbit has got a very strange place in society where it's the only thing that is equally considered food and a pet.
Yeah. I think because I had a pet rabbit, that's how maybe wasn't eating it.
That would put you off because there's no other animal, as far as I know, that really, has that kind of niche that overlaps with the whole Venn diagram of food and pets. People wouldn't, in this country, you would never eat a dog or even a horse.
I think we've all ate horse.
Knowingly.
We've all ate horse. We've all had the cheap hamburgers in the 90s.
Tesco lasagna, I think that was the big one.
I actually had horse, like, as an actual meal in the Kubla Khan restaurant in Glasgow. And that's how I know I definitely had horse before, because it's got a very distinct flavour. See,
that's if we had more people that had eaten horse and knew what it tasted like, maybe they would have sussed it out earlier.
That's it.
No, everybody in Scotland just thinks cheap beef tastes like horse.
I hope we're not offending any vegans, by the way. Sorry, Neil.
Yeah, we're very vegan friendly. But just personally, I am not one.
I eat vegan food. I like vegan food.
You have a kind of vegan vibe. I'm always surprised when I remember you're not.
People just assume I'm vegan,
Mhm.
but I do love a vegetarian sausage.
We'll just move on for that. No innuendos at all. Seeing as you've no asked, I had a lovely time, like in my wee break for podcasting. I went to see Hamilton in Edinburgh.
That's
At the,
fancy.
it was very fancy. It was awesome as well. Went with my mum and my wife and my oldest daughter. She's very into
Did you like it?
it. Yeah, we'd seen it in Disney Plus before, so
Oh,
she knew the story and all that, and loves all the songs, and I kind of like the politics as well. So it's a great fusion of people that like musicals and people that are into politics. So if you fit that sort of description, I think you would definitely like Hamilton.
very nice. And how are the kids getting on?
Well, I'm happy to announce the final fourth child has been potty trained.
Yay!
So the very long run of 12 years of changing nappies is over.
For now.
Hopefully for quite a long time. You'd think you'd be happier about it. I mean, I'm pleased, but when you do something for 12 years, it stops being a big deal. So I remember like when Molly was first born, the idea of changing nappies was like this horrific ordeal and hated it. And by the time the fourth kid comes along, you're just second nature. Also went to the Barrowlands to see Elvana.
Is that a band?
It
A
is a
si-
band. It is a Nirvana cover band fronted by an Elvis impersonator.
What?
And it's every bit as amazing as it sounds.
That is- sounds very camp. Elvis,
Don't know
does
about
he
that.
sing like
That's
does he sing like Elvis but sing Nirvana songs?
Yeah, well, they sort of like fuse. Like a lot of the songs, for what I remember, I was quite well oiled. But for what I remember, a lot of it starts out with a kind of intro for an Elvis song, and then
Right.
they sort of lead into like a Nirvana song. So it's mostly Nirvana with a wee bit of Elvis sprinkled in the top.
Barrowlands is a good venue, isn't it?
It's a very good venue.
That's cool.
It's got that kind of great mix of good atmosphere and complete lack of pretension because it's all kind of scuffed and falling apart. So.
Also known as a dive.
Yeah, but I prefer that to somewhere like the Hydro that's like this big space age fancy sort of place.
I like
It's
the
got its
Hydro.
place. I do, it's got its place, but in certain bands, I would love to go to see in the Barrowlands. It just wouldn't interest me to go to see in the Hydro. Some bands are meant to play scruffy venues.
Scruffy bands. Or Elvis impersonators singing Nirvana.
And on that note, let's get ungagged. First item on the agenda. Rishi Sunak's flagship smoking ban has passed its first parliamentary hurdle despite opposition from within his cabinet due to Labour backing the bill. Mr Sunak wants to raise the legal age to buy cigarettes annually in a bid to phase out the habit, as well as restrict the sale of vaping products. Proposals would make it illegal to sell tobacco products to anyone born after 1st of January 2009, with the Prime Minister hoping to create a smoke-free generation. Tory MPs were given a free vote in the Commons, meaning that they were allowed to oppose the government if they wished without facing repercussions. The House of Commons voted in favour of the plan by 383 votes to 67. What do you think of this plan, Deborah?
Well, I think it's a progressive plan, but when I asked Jeanie, who smokes about 40 cigarettes a day, her instinct was, I'm not giving up smoking, which I think is the response of a lot of people who smoke, probably. They're worried that it's going to impact them. But they said it's the age of when you're allowed to buy cigarettes is going to go up every year. So eventually nobody's going to be able to buy cigarettes. Is that right?
Yeah, but obviously everybody's age goes up a year.
Yeah.
So all individuals smoking will
Still be
still be able
able.
to do it for the rest of their lives. It basically means that nobody new will ever be able to catch up to the age that they'll be able to smoke.
What do you
So you
think
tell
about?
Jeanie, you can tell Jeanie it's fine. She doesn't need to worry because she was born a wee bit before 2009.
Oh, just a wee bit. I mean, she doesn't listen. The doctor's been telling her to give up. I don't think she'll listen Rishi Sunak telling her to give up. But what do you think? Do you think it's a bit authoritarian?
It's very, it's a very strange feeling, like because instinctively I kind of like it,
Mm.
which is bizarre coming from a Tory government generally, like, but also find it kind of hard to reconcile with the fact that I'd pretty much decriminalise or legalise every other drug. So I'm trying to think, why am I kind of in favour of more restrictions that can put on, a drug that's already available, like nicotine?
That's a
Um,
really good point, to be fair.
I think it's because of how people use nicotine. It's nobody else like uses a drug the way people use nicotine. Smokers, at least smokers I know, open their eyes and light a cigarette within half an hour of getting up, or certainly
Yeah.
before breakfast. They smoke pretty much all day, on and off, when chance allows, and then probably the last thing of the day before they go up to their bed is have another one. So, like drinkers don't do that. Any drinkers that do that are people with a serious problem. It's not the average sort of drinker. Other kind of illegal drugs, nobody really uses them like that unless, again, they've got a serious problem. And it is really harmful in terms of the long-term health effects that it has on people. So if we can phase it out, it's got to be a good thing. And I'm not really much a libertarian in a lot of issues, so
Yeah.
I don't really mind the whole big government aspect of it.
It's also unique in the sense that it impacts other people around the person who's using it. Like, like it directly impacts their health from secondary smoke and stuff like wanes and all that. And I also think, considering that we've already got a smoking ban in a lot of public places and shopping centres and I don't know, it's cafes and civic centres and things like that. I don't, I'm not that bothered about it.
Yeah, I mean, as a non-smoker, I don't really care. And if it stops my wains ever smoking, then that's a good thing.
Do you think the vaping is much more problematic? Like, do you think it should be that should be included?
I don't know. I mean, because vaping's still kind of new, the long term effects are still kind of unknown. They suspect that it's harmful, but probably less harmful than smoking. I don't know. I kind of get the feeling vaping might not be as harmful as some people worry it might be. But I mean, is it worth sort of preempting it without knowing without waiting for people to kind of start dying and
Hmm.
it becoming ingrained in our culture? They are putting more restrictions on and bring it more in line with smoking, like changing like the packaging and things like that. So I think that's all right. I don't think really have a problem with that. I think just treat it along the lines of smoking as of now, without maybe going for the full ban like they're doing with smoking.
Hmm. Maybe.
I
Do
breathed
you,
in smoke and I breathed in vape. It feels a lot less toxic.
see, I don't like the smell of vape. I think there's a distinct smell of vapes, like a sort of
But in terms
chemical
of like
thing.
if you inhale smoke, you're coughing and spluttering and
Us.
feel like you're going to die if you're not used to it.
Probably because I live with a
I've,
smoker, I've become immune.
yeah, that's probably an issue.
Yes, it's an issue in itself. No, I think back to you remember that advert in the 90s of them us being in the future and they're sucking on horrible sticks and it was like a cartoon. Do you mind
Oh,
that?
the wee aliens.
The wee aliens, I and it was like they all stuck it sucking this stick and it's no good for them. And I kind of think, well, we know how bad nicotine is. What if vapes are just as bad? What if they're worse? Is there no a thing called popcorn lung that you get with vaping if you vape too much?
I don't know. I don't know about the scientific evidence behind
I
this. So
suppose. I suppose that's the problem, isn't it? It's not been round long enough. I think if you're going to ban smoking, then I would think you would want to ban some other stuff that's maybe just as harmful. But the Tories seem to be much more critical of any sort of other public health actions taken by the Scottish Government. For example, the minimum price in alcohol. That's to try and stop people from getting harm for drinking too much alcohol. And
yeah, I mean, I would say that smoking is definitely ahead of alcohol in terms of health outcomes. Like statistically, it's way ahead. The amount of deaths that are associated with it.
oh, I'm just saying that I find it interesting that the Tories are so. we're going to
It
ban
is it is very out of. It's such a
character.
strange policy for the Tories to go
Yeah.
with. You know, you're talking about a party that's got a huge libertarian wing who are furious about this idea. They're the main opposition, to be honest, like more than any other parties in Parliament, as far as I'm aware. And also, a party that's in the pocket of big government, big multinational corporations. So you think the tobacco companies, obviously the tobacco companies are going to be against this. I think they successfully undermined a similar ban in New Zealand.
Oh.
And, so it's so out of kilter for what you would expect for the Tories.
Are tobacco companies the same people who make vapes, or is it like is there an association there? So there's maybe no worrying because they're just gonna, oh well, we'll just put our money into
Um,
vapes.
yeah, I don't know actually.
It's
I don't
just
really know. When you hear about the big tobacco companies, I've never actually heard of big vape
big
companies.
vape. That's the
Uh,
new multinational conglomerate we need to worry about.
New Zealand brought in a very similar ban that, and the tobacco companies funded like a big astroturf, a big grassroots movement
Wow.
against it. And then, despite it not being an issue at all in the last general election in New Zealand, the right wing government that came in just announced that they were abolishing it to everybody's surprise because it hadn't been an issue discussed. But this is people suspect it was because behind the scenes the big tobacco companies were pushing for it.
Wow.
I was going to say I do wonder if it's just something's it gets floated by the Tories and they kind of have the expectation that will not really happen, but it might, I don't know, create a kind of more progressive buzz around them or something. I don't know. Do you think it'll be enforceable? Like, do you think it'll be undermined by like people smuggling and just create a kind of black market?
Aye, you'll be able to go down the barras and get cigarettes again, and but people will be selling tobacco, Golden Virginia tobacco on Instagram. I mean, I don't think
I
it's
mean,
enforceable.
that kind of happens anyway. It's like, would they ever be able to? Would they be able to up the scale that would in any way compare to basically being able to buy them in every single shop in the country?
Mm.
There would be some kind of black market, but would it really be enough to undermine? You know,
I think if there's money to be made there, criminals will make it.
yeah,
They'll
that's true.
they'll go on holiday, go to Turkey, get thousands of cigarettes and
What it might do is might change the pattern how people smoke. I wonder if
mm,
you might then get it so that people might smoke more casually and socially, like the way they treat alcohol.
maybe.
Not that many people drink every day the way they smoke every day. So if you know you're only got cigarettes in a window because you've only got some that you got somebody to bring you back to Spain or whatever,
Hmm.
you maybe can't afford to be just smoking them every day the way you normally do.
Yeah.
And a lot of people might just decide to quit because it's easier than constantly trying to feed their habit.
Or they might go into pipes or chewing tobacco.
Uh, I know that the sort of snus, sort of wee pouches are included in the ban, so I
Are they?
presume chewing tobacco would probably as well.
I don't
Unless I've
know
missed it because it's no a big
what is a
enough.
pouch. What is this? What is snus?
It's like a kind of wee nicotine pouch thing that
Oh,
people put in their gum.
interesting.
Mm.
Oh, like chewing gum.
No, it just sort of you just sort of hold it there and it sort of diffuses into your bloodstream. Apparently, a lot of football players use them
Wow.
because they're obviously, I'm guessing, does they damage your lungs, so they can have nicotine with it affecting their ability to run about the football pitch. Football managers use it as a kind of anti-stress thing when they're standing next to the pitch. Just what I was saying before about the situation in New Zealand, I would not be surprised to see if Reform UK end up running with this big time in terms of the general election and making it a big part of their platform because it will appeal to exactly the kind of Tories that like to defect to reform.
Yeah.
And, I could see them getting funding to do that from the tobacco companies behind the scenes.
Ah, that's a good
So
insight. Yeah.
that's my prediction. Wait to see if suddenly Reform are able to field candidates in every constituency because they've got, backing from British American Tobacco or something like that. We wait with bated breath.
So obviously, the news that the Bute House agreement is now ended has changed a lot of things. but we'd already done this recording and I'd started editing before the news broke. So here we are, with me telling you that you either can skip to the next bit or listen to this and just pretend you're back in time. I don't know. Me and David have obviously got a few different opinions on the subject now, but he's very bossy and said to leave this in. So here we are.
The second item in our agenda this evening. For the first time since coming to power, members of the Green Party will vote on whether to continue being part of the Scottish Government. If members opt to ditch the Bute House agreement with the SNP, co-leaders Patrick Harvie and Lorna Slater would be forced to quit their governmental roles, taking the SNP's working majority with them. Relations between the parties have become strained in recent months, with the SNP announcing a council tax freeze, and the vote has been called in the aftermath of the Scottish Government announcing that the Scottish NHS would follow the recommendations of the CAS report to pause the prescription of puberty blockers for new patients, as well as an announcement that targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 75% by 2030 would be scrapped. Deborah. Now, even if this happens, we know that there's at least one Green and SNP alliance that will survive, and that's between you and me.
Okay? Solidarity, brother.
So we'll try and keep this civil. We don't want to get into any arguments here, but what's your thoughts on this?
I'm sad about it. I was one of the grateful people at the Bute House agreement. I thought that the Greens brought a lot of sort of balance to the Scottish Government. I think we've got some good green legislation that's been put through since then. Some that obviously, like the bottle return scheme, that was disappointing. But single-use plastics ban, that's was passed. I think just recently there was another one where plastic wipes are, like wet wipes that have plastic in them, they're getting banned as well. Uh, Plastic bags we don't have plastic bags anymore, do we? Really? You can still buy the bags for life, but I think they made a really positive contribution to the governance of Scotland, and I think it'd be a shame, but I understand completely why their membership are raging. Are you raging?
I don't really know. I mean, I voted against it in the first place. And it's kind of led to this situation where I feel as if the Greens have kind of become a bit entangled with the internal SNP politics and turned into this kind of counterweight against the kind of right-wing faction of the SNP.
Yeah.
I just feel, and I feel as if Humza's government is in danger of kind of falling between two schools. It's like they're too progressive for the right-wing his own party, but kind of attempts to placate a hostile media, and part of which are populated with, some figures, in the right East party. And by doing that, they're kind of alienating the kind of natural allies that the Greens seem to be. So I think it's made it kind of messy. So, but at the same time, I don't know if, withdrawing now, if it's too late, if it's really going to make a difference. Can they disentangle themselves properly? Or would it be better just staying the course now till the next election at least?
Well, I kind of feel like that as well. Like just hang it out till the next election. But if the member, it's ultimately up to the membership of the Green Party if that's what they want. I always find it interesting how different the Scottish Greens are, though, to, other international Greens. Like, yous really have taken on a sort of social angle of your, environmentalism. I'd admire it. It's not that's not a slight upon you. It
I
also
mean,
makes you much less middle class than a lot of the other Green parties, which is where I think a lot of the allegiance sort of comes for the broad support of SNP. A lot of people who support them are working class and
I
middle
mean,
class as well.
but I mean, part of the reason I kind of opposed it as well was, internationally, the story of a lot of Green parties are kind of radical, parties that end up becoming part of a coalition government and then sort of selling it basically. And I didn't want that for the Scottish Greens, so I thought the safest option was just to kind of stay out of government,
I
and
mean,
look,
if,
and put pressure on the SNP from the left from without with the party.
if the Bute House agreement did end, right, the Greens are still going to support a lot of the SNP policies, surely. Like that, I don't see. I see a lot of commentators saying, "Oh, it's going to be a breakdown of Holyrood and all the rest of it," but I see it more of a detrimental to the Greens. Like you're going to lose two government positions. Is that no? Like you are getting your voice heard, you are getting policies brought forward. Is that not a factor
I,
in it?
I think I think that's more of a factor for Patrick and Lorna than it is for anybody else in the Greens, to be honest.
Really?
Um, I mean, I don't even have this in my notes because I only saw it just before we were on. But Patrick Harvey's now said that he'll stand down
Really?
if they withdraw from the government. I presume just as co-leader, I don't think, at least I hope no, he's no talking about standing down for Parliament. I don't. That would be a bit of a tantrum, to be honest, if it was that extreme. But I can
That'd
see his
be.
point. Like you know, he really pushed for the Bute House agreement, and I would respect that if he felt as if he couldn't continue as in the leadership position if they voted to undo it.
I think it would be a shame. I think it would be a bit myopic, the party, if you did step out of, the agreement. But it's up to you.
I
Uh,
mean, I think, if I want to be really conspiratorial, I would say it's almost like the SNP created a perfect storm for this to happen. I don't really think like Humza Yousaf secretly wants rid of the Greens or anything, but the three sort of policies that's driven this, the council tax freeze, it really upset the Green councillor group. Um,
upset the SNP council group as well.
yeah, so that's quite an influential, faction within the Greens. Then the announcing that they were going to accept the cash report has really upset the Rainbow Greens, who are the ones that pushed the petition for this emergency general meeting. Sorry, extraordinary general meeting. And obviously, just the cherry on the top to announce the scrap of the climate targets. It's like, well, that's guaranteed to upset almost everybody in the Greens. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I don't really think it's a conspiracy, but I could see how you could piece together a conspiracy based on that because it's like I said, it's a perfect storm.
Yeah.
Um,
It was the interim climate targets I feel that should be said. It's only the 2030 target that's been scrapped, hasn't it? Like we're still hoping to be carbon neutral by 2050. Is that not the case? Did I misread that?
no, well, that is the 2030 targets, but
Mhm.
you can argue that the closer targets are the more important ones because it's the
Yeah,
ones you need to take action on. It's quite easy to set a target for 2050 when probably nobody that's in the government will still be there, that time.
it's a cop out.
Uh,
Pardon the pun.
Again, though, why bother announcing this now? You could have waited to the lead up to the election before doing it when the agreement might have came to a natural end anyway. The 2030 would have still been a few years off, and I don't know. I just feel as if it's the Scottish government are trying to placate this kind of hostile media environment, and in doing so, they've pissed off their allies. The council tax freeze was just something that they thought they could get a good headline out of when there was a bit of panic because there was a lot of things going on that was dragging them through the gutter, and they thought some advisor in a meeting has obviously said council tax freeze. People like the idea that people don't like the council tax. We'll get a headline that will basically say less money getting taken out of your pocket, but it was very short term and quite short sighted.
I kind of understand what they're saying about the climate targets, even though I don't agree with it. I think we should be just striving as hard as we can to get to reach net zero. Uh, but I can I feel like the reasons are not justified, but they make sense that they're not going to do it and trying to be, they're not going to reach the targets anyway. So, but what is their justification, the government's justification for adopting the cash report? I do not
I
understand
think
any of that.
I think they just didn't want another culture war. Like,
Another
you know,
GRA.
they just didn't want to have to deal with the fact that immediately the media were going to be asking if they were going to do that, because it was happening in England, and then they would. I think it's because they would have then by default be having to lead the charge and defend trans people, and clearly they weren't willing to do that because they feel they've used enough political capital, basically.
It's just it's heartbreaking for our trans siblings, just this constant barrage of hatred towards them. Solidarity. I don't know what to say further on any of that, to be honest, because it's a wee bit depressing, and I was dead happy about coming back to the podcast, and I'm feeling depressed. I
You've done
might
enough
take.
podcasts with me to know it always ends in a down note. You always
I
come out of
know.
it feeling worse.
I was just going to say I might take up smoking. Calm
Well,
myself.
you were born before 2009, so you'll have that option. I don't know if it'll go through or not. I was leaning towards it will until I read that Patrick Harvey was basically putting his job in the line for it.
I
I do wonder if that'll make a lot of people blink and no want to be seen to be going against Patrick Harvey.
Oh, it'd be interesting.
Yeah,
When
I never really liked the way the vote went through in the first place. Like every meeting to discuss it, I heard people kept stressing about how much work people had put into the agreement, and I kind of wanted to go, well, is that the best reason to do it? Because people have worked hard on it. Maybe we should have voted before they done the work then. But it was clearly done in a way that let's put all this work in, let's praise how much work people had done, and now then use that as a justification for voting on it. I thought that was a wee bit sneaky, and
Yeah, a bit manipulative
yeah,
because
and I feel Patrick's announcement
the
is the
same.
same sort of tactic. It's like we're now not voting just on this agreement; we have to vote on whether we want to sack Patrick, basically,
Hmm.
and it could swing it. I think there's a lot of people that will be swayed with that. What do you think this will mean for the Scottish government if they do withdraw?
And as I said, I don't think it will make much difference for how bills get put through. I think the Greens will still support a lot of the SNP motions and stuff. I, d- I don't see it breaking the system fundamentally, but I do see it as it, it would be detrimental to the sort of rainbow parliament that we were striving for.
And our next item on the agenda. Rishi Sunak has announced plans to trial stripping GPs of their power to sign people off work as he attacked the UK's sick note culture in a speech about welfare. Instead, he wants specialist work and health professionals to issue fit notes as part of a broader aim to make sick notes harder to obtain. Doctors' Union, the British Medical Association, said fit notes were carefully considered before they are written and criticised Mr Sunak's hostile rhetoric on the issue. Deborah, thoughts?
Oh, well, I'm glad you brought this up because it'll put a wee bit pep into me. I am raging about this. How dare this guy with his fucking hard working families and disabled people can work. That speech infuriated me beyond belief just because I kept watching it and thinking, this guy can't be real. And it also made me think, there's no way he's calling an election this side of summer. I can't believe that he thinks that the DWP should be getting involved in anybody's like determining to them whether they can work or not. How dare he? How, you said it in one about Atos. That's exact. As soon as he said it, I was like, "Oh, here we go again." G4 was it G4S? The in Atos. They were. It was like such incompetence, and again, it's further. demonisation of disabled people, sick people, people with mental health problems, people with neurological conditions, people with additional support needs, that this guy, this government, this fucking country were so regressive. I thought all these battles had been fought and won. I thought that we had agreed that, do you know what? We should look after disabled people. We should look after sick people. We should look after people who are having a hard time, maybe mentally or with their, I don't know, maybe they're suffering from terrible social anxiety. And I thought we were making people better, no getting the Department of Work and Pension to decide, oh, they can work, they can't work. Sorry. I know you asked a very specific question. I can't actually remember what the, because I
No,
went off in one.
it was a very wide and vague question. I think it just asked you what you thought, so
And
I go with it.
I got on a rant. I'm really sorry. What do you think about it? Like I know you
Well,
mentioned the Atos
yeah, I
aspect.
mean, it just feels so reminiscent of how,
Hmm.
like, the fitness to work tests for people on, like, sickness type benefits were taken out of GPs sort of for view and put in the hands of a private company contracted to the DWP. And so much it sounds good in the surface when he's talking about it, talking about supporting people with, issues so they can keep working. But we know it's just nonsense. Like, that's not how it will go. It would only work if we had a kind of decent working culture where people are valued, and that just doesn't exist in this country. What happens is somebody's no fit to work, but Atos 2.0 decides that they don't get a sick note. So what will happen? They'll end up sacked because if they're not able to go to work, either they'll go to work and something bad will happen. I saw a TikTok that was talking about it, which made me think it for another point of view. Because I think everybody I've spoke to are speaking like for the point of view of if you need a sick note and you can't get it. But the other hand is, he says, "What would you like to be a patient and gone in for surgery with a surgeon who turned up to work, had to come to work even though the arthritis in his hands is flared up?
That's a
You
good
know,
point.
do you want to
Yeah.
go to send your wains to school with a teacher that's in the middle of a mental health crisis but is get forced to go into the class? It's so unworkable. And what happened is people end up having to walk away for their jobs where it isn't necessary, where they could have had, needed, a month, 2 months off to resolve whatever issue they've got and come back to work and continue on. But instead now they'll end up having to claim benefits because they'll be able to work and they'll be able to work and then getting put through the ringer by Atos like they currently do with people.
That's a good perspective, but and even another one is from an employer's point of view. What if, as you said, somebody comes in and they're having some sort of flare up, maybe we'll just stick with your one arthritis and that, and they're doing their job and then they fall and hurt themselves. Who's then liable for any sort of damages? Is that the employer? Because it's been a workplace accident. I think that it's a terrible situation where we're instead of talking about how people can be supported in work, we're talking about, I'm really sorry, my ma just sent in the Doug. She just came and stood on the laptop.
Hi, Heidi.
I'm on the podcast, Jeanie. Sorry.
I hope you keep that in. I'm on the podcast. Jeanie is going to be the name of the episode.
I was trying to make a point about like who becomes responsible for any sort of thing that happens at work. If somebody has a terrible fall, if somebody has a industrial accident because they've been sick and the DWP said, oh no, they're fit to go to work. I didn't like how Rishi Sunak very specifically spoke about people with mobility problems, right? And how he's going to get employers to help them do a job because what's he going to do? Retrofit every workplace in the UK to be completely accessible? Because I can assure you that there's plenty of places where you can't even get in to get a coffee, never mind going to do your work. And what work is it he's talking about? The way Tories speak about work for poor people is totally different from how they speak about work for people like them. They have ambition and career and get to choose what they want to do. Whereas poor people don't. Poor people just have to work. Go to work. Doesn't matter what job it is. Doesn't matter if it suits your ability or that. We'll make it suit your ability. And I really want to tell the punchline of a joke I was doing about a guy with no arms, no legs, getting told by the TWP he had to go and get a job in a chicken factory. And when they got there, they made him a helmet with a stick on it so he could press a button. And it was a very physically comedic joke, which was funny. I thought it was funny. So did my niece. But she vetoed it for my actual act at the stand because she said, it's no believable. And now we're living in that reality where even if you're lying in a coma, it's all right. We'll hook you up to some neurons and you can power an AI or something. That's the future we've got. Disabled people are no even counted anymore. We're just constantly, we're at the butt end of every harsh policy, every measure of austerity, every cost of living increase. It's disabled and sick people, elderly people that are, facing the worst of it.
It's the whole thing as well. Like, he's saying, we'll make sure there's accommodations for people and, and people with mobilities. Well, a big thing for people with mobilities is actually getting to and from work without using up all their energy. And this is the same government that have been, every now and again, it keeps popping up how working from home is no feasible and that has to go. And, the strides forward we made through the pandemic in terms of working from home, they're desperate to roll it back. And now we're supposed to believe them that, oh no, they're finding accommodations. But why are they trying to take away accommodations that are already there?
Exactly. They're charlatans. And I don't believe a word they say. When they say they're going to do a cut and crack down and stuff, I believe that. But when they say they're going to help you, I don't believe a word of them. I can't
No.
think of one helpful thing they've done for me as a disabled person in the 12 years of power. Is it 12 years?
14, isn't it?
14.
I mean, is it? I do wonder if somebody like Sunak that's kind of like been brought up like in the lap of luxury. It's a lot of it is so out of touch because, like you said, jobs for people like him are very different.
Yeah.
They can get accommodations and what days they can work and what hours they can work and the type of industries they can move in. They can afford to take chances and move into a completely new job because they don't need to worry about not having a safety net because they're already millionaires.
And they can negotiate their salary, whereas many people you're getting minimum wage. That's that. I mean,
or at the very most, you can try and argue on a very small scale that they've specified in the advert.
Exactly. It's a different world we live in.
I did read some GPs, in one of the articles I read where they were saying that it is a plus side because it would help with their workload because they do see a lot of their appointments of people coming in and needing a sick note. The thing is, a lot of that is employers demanding it unnecessarily.
Exactly.
I think in my work, it's like you need one if it's over 7 days or something like that. But I've heard the other works, like if you're off like with the cold for a day, demanding a sick note over it, and it's like, well, that's just wasting their time because now the person has to make time to go to their doctor, waste the doctor's time to get a sick note for a day, all because of some bureaucratic thing in whatever company it is.
Yeah.
So if they really wanted to do that, they could just abolish the concept of sick notes, just like everybody self-cert.
You've solved it.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen because they don't trust, workers. They're quite clear about that. That's what's behind the whole anti-work from home thing.
Yeah.
Because in their mind, they're absolutely filled with fury, the idea that somebody might nip out in the middle of the day when they're on the clock to, pick their kids up or grab something from the supermarket or whatever. And it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter to them if you're producing the results and the productivity is perfect. They just like this idea of being able to control you for the hours that they get to dictate, and that's the work culture we have in the UK. So this idea that suddenly it's all going to become rosy, and they're all going to be really helpful in how they can accommodate people and what physical or mental tasks they feel able to do. No, it's cuckoo land. It's absolutely cuckoo land.
I think it'd be amiss not to mention some of the comments he said about folk suffering from depression and other mental health conditions, about the support and how you can just be medicated. And I thought that was a bit what the fuck's he talking about? You're just going to be giving people pills so they go to work? That doesn't seem healthy. Like, that doesn't seem a healthy approach to what is being hailed as an absolute, health, a national health problem. So I found that very telling, considering how many mental health hospitals have been, and services have been impacted. People are waiting longer for appointments and for treatment, and he's just like, oh, just give you some pills, get you back get you back in that product line.
Yeah, whether it's good for you long term or no,
Yeah.
just get the pills done you and get back to work. That's the attitude. And the one line he came out with that, literally made me do a double take when I heard it, and I couldn't believe he said it. People aren't sicker than they were 10 years ago. It's like we just went through a historic global pandemic.
Yep.
You're talking about physical effects of people, a lot of people suffering from long COVID. The full effects will not be known for years, but I suspect that it might be a lot worse than anybody realises at the moment. Two, the psychological trauma that everybody went through. I don't think there's anything comparable. I think to find something more impactful, you need to go back to the Second World War. Something that impacted all of society at all levels like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I suffer a bit of anxiety, which is something I'd never suffered before the pandemic. But it's just something that's kind of crept in at times, and I really think it was related because there was months of going to work with this sense of absolute dread that society might start unraveling. So then to just turn around and go as if the last 10 years has been uneventful. So I'm sure there's no reason why you would suddenly have a spike in mental and physical illness. Absolute clown.
I think as well, we've got to consider that 10 years ago there was only 7 billion people on the planet, and now there's 8 billion people. So just by math and arithmetic, people are sicker now because people are older. We've got more people are older. And he spoke one lot of nonsense.
Absolute clown.
All them clowns.
Standing in the middle of the parliament, clowns to the left and the jokers to the right. I think this might be quite a full podcast without criticising Keir Starmer. That's a first. We move on to our final topic of the evening.
Why not?
Thousands of people turned out on Saturday at a rally for Scottish independence. The Believe in Scotland march went from Kelvin Way to George Square in Glasgow, accompanied by drummers and bagpipers. Many demonstrators carried Palestinian flags and chanted "Free, Free Palestine." There was a concerning incident in the day, though, when a man appeared to attempt to drive his car directly into the marchers. Police confirmed that a 20-year-old has been arrested for drug and driving offences and has now been released. What would you like to start with?
It was nice to see all the saltires and Palestinian flags and a couple of line rampants. It looked good. Seen all the pictures and watching the video. And yes, that incident, I watched it. I was like, what the fuck's going on? I didn't, and there was so little information about it. It was all just speculation. Oh, it was a right-wing idea. It was, it was intentional. It was targeted. And the only thing that I kept thinking about the video was just how calm everybody was that was still walking along the march. Like they were like, what's going on here? They seemed a bit imperious. But I seen some of the speeches at the George Square, and it looked good. There was it was on occasion it was hard to hear because there was idiots there with bloody whistles, and I don't care what flag they had. I would have pulled the whistles right out their mouth. What did you think about it? Did you go? Were you tempted to go?
I was working over the weekend, so I wasn't able to go. I would quite like to have went. It would have looked good. It looked good. It looked as if it was a real happy vibe. Maybe it was just the sunshine, was it?
Yeah.
But there was definitely a kind of positive vibe. And it's great to see sort of Scottish independence and Palestinian solidarity sort of coming together. I have this theory that there is only one good and one evil, and it's all connected. So that's kind of proven my theory correct in that case.
What did you think of the motor incident?
I mean, we don't really. I mean, we don't know at this stage. We don't really know what was going on in the guy's head and what his intentions were. I was surprised to read he was already released quite quickly. With it, he was charged, but released, which means he certainly was charged under terrorism act. Which if he had been a Muslim doing it, I doubt he would have been afforded the same sort of benefit of the doubt. I think he would have been banged up for the 28 days or whatever they can hold people.
They might have deported him to Rwanda, even if he was forgiven.
But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if it'll come out, I'm sure, if this guy's got like a online profile that's full of extreme unionist conspiracy theory sort of content.
See, I just thought it was an idiot driver. Like, there's so many idiot drivers on the road, and I just felt like he thought he could go straight on at that road. I seen some people saying he was trying to turn left, but you can't turn left up that street, I don't think.
I thought he looked as if he was trying to accelerate, and because the police kind of like fair play to the police that did stop him. He did decelerate quite a lot when the police kind of jumped in front of him, but he was going at a bit of a pace, so I don't really buy that he was maybe just trying to inch his way through the crowd. Like, I mean, that would have been a stupid thing to do and a reckless thing to do anyway. But I
Don't
don't know
cross
when
a march in Glasgow.
my first reaction when I saw that video that it looked intentional. I was then getting really frustrated because the guy who was filming the video just went back to filming the marches. So I wasn't even at that point. I wasn't even sure if the. I wanted to know see if the police were taking him out the car and actually arresting him, or if they were just giving him a talking to because they thought he was just a dafty that thought he could get through somehow.
What do you
But
think about marches in general anyway? Like, are you a pro marcher?
I, I don't go to as many as I used to just because of the family commitments and stuff like that. I think they've got their place. I'm not sure how much they achieve. I don't know if I get feeling there might be a lot of people my age that sort of as a young person marched to try to stop the war in Iraq, where like
Yeah.
literally millions of people around the world, and it made a not a blind bit of difference, which
Mhm.
kind of dented my faith in that kind of show of support to get out in the streets. So in terms of the effect it has in government is a bit disappointing. But it
I
still
lo
has its place. It allows people to meet up. It allows people to in things like the Palestinian marches. If it gives somebody in Palestine that's scared for their life a wee bit of comfort to know there's other people thinking of them, it's certainly well worth doing.
Yeah. I like that we can march, put it that way. I think sometimes they're not very accessible. And I always hate a rally where men are stoning shouting through a megaphone. It's very off-putting for me. But I'll go to a pride march. I've been in other marches, anti-fracking marches and stuff like that. So I'm not against marches. And like you, I think they have a place. But as you said, what do they achieve? Do we need to march all the way down to London like the 1932 hunger marches? Do we need to do something? Do we need to do more than just march through a city that's marched through every June and July?
Yeah, let's say they learn about the if it does turn out that the driver is get links to kind of real kind of extreme unionism, it wouldn't surprise me. I feel as if in the last few years, the kind of hardcore unionists have got a lot more extreme and conspiratorial, and so when I saw this, it didn't surprise me that something like that could happen because I feel as if there is an element in Scottish politics that is getting more and more far right, more and more just deranged in their sort of views of stuff. The way almost any policy with the Scottish government gets turned into a life or death, you know, culture war sort of issue is getting ludicrous. I mean, the fact that they managed to do it about the deposit return scheme. We're talking about empty plastic bottles and glass bottles, and they turned this into some kind of government tyranny that you know must be defeated as a source of all evil. And maybe it's always been like that. Maybe I'm just noticing it more. But what do you think?
No, I think you're right. I think far right extremism and sort of conspiratorial views have just become so much more widely accepted. I mean, we had a president of the United States who was into some of that stuff. So I think it's become a lot more mainstream, a lot more acceptable. And we've got to remember as well that after the independence referendum in 2014 and then Brexit, a lot more people who weren't traditionally politicized became politically active and they found a voice and some sort of empowerment in whatever it was they were, fighting for or against. So I think a lot of it is to do with sort of getting confidence and speaking up about their opinions, which I'm no really against. But when that,
Theoretically,
yeah, theory in theory, but when that transpires into potential actions of terrorism, that's quite scary. I just hope that the guy was drugged out of his mind or something, and that's what's been happening because he was arrested on dangerous driving and was it drug charges, I think?
yeah. I mean, my suspicion that they arrested him for the dangerous driving, and he happened to have like some cannabis on him or something like that. So it
Mm.
might not necessarily mean that he was under the influence, but yeah, I don't feel as if I wasn't shocked to see that happening, even if it turns out it's not what I initially thought it was, because I think there's such a lot of dangerous rhetoric flying about.
Absolutely.
Um,
I think we need to give a wee shout out to the steward who tried to stiff arm the car. I thought that was very brave or stupid. I don't know what one. Uh,
or just optimistic at the very least.
yeah. I mean, the police will get, praise anyway through gritted teeth and that. But it was, I thought it was, I thought it was quite scary. I thought that could have been a tragedy, an absolute tragedy.
And
And
we've seen it in other countries, like
absolutely.
people using cars like that.
Charlottesville, which was
Yeah,
again
there's.
far right, wasn't it?
I mean, it got to the point where a lot of the Black Lives Matters marches where they were arranging to have cars of their own flanking marches in order to so that we're in a position where they could block anything
Wow.
like that happening. Which, if you're getting to the stage where people are having to take the precautions, it shows you how normalised incidents like that were becoming.
Aye,
But
it's testament to the rise of the far right, or rather the re-emergence of their ugly head because they've no went anywhere, have they? They're always there, lurking, big hobnail boots, but to kick down our door.
certainly been more emboldened in recent years, though.
Absolutely.
And we should also talk about the sort of spat between the organisers of the demonstration, Believe in Scotland, and the Alba Party.
A spat that never.
Spat. A spat. That's a bit tabloidy phrasing, that wasn't it?
That was good. But a headline, sensational headlining. Uh, it's it's Alapa for you, and it was them that hummed and hawed about will we get a speaker, no get a speaker, and then when the crunch came to what's that phrase? When time came to the crunch? What is that phrase about crunching? Anyway, it was very crunchy, and Ross Greer decided to talk instead of Alaba, didn't he?
Yeah,
And
it seems. I was reading the statement from Alba and the reply from Believe in Scotland. Believe in Scotland were saying that they have a lot of Alba Party activists in their ranks. They made the decision to invite Alba with the knowledge that that meant the Greens wouldn't take part. And when Alba didn't give them an answer, the Greens they offered an invite to the Greens. And after that, when Alba then came in, I think they felt well they couldn't uninvite the Greens after they had already when the Greens had made their position quite clear. But Believe in Scotland in their statement said that they just felt as if Alba were trying to manufacture an argument with them for whatever reason.
oh, but they're such nice people.
I wouldn't be like them with it. I mean, they say that Alba didn't show much interest in speaking. Alba claimed that Believe in Scotland were trying to dictate who the speaker would be, which, to be honest, I wouldn't blame them because we have some people that were kind of mainstream politicians in Alba, but we've also got some absolute extremists, hate figures that, you wouldn't want none of them speaking in front of your crowd.
No. And I think some of the speakers that were there were very good, I understand. Hamza Yusuf and Ross Greer spoke well, and I can't think anybody else. Gordon McIntyre Kemp, you're going to Google it.
I'll Google it just so we don't want to miss anything there.
By the way, listeners, David's had a haircut and he looks about 20 years younger. He's got a new halo light. He's looking very youthful.
Yeah, maybe we'll release the video so people can see how nice I look.
No, because they'll see me wrapped up in my sheep's blanket.
So the full list of speakers were First Minister Hamza Yusuf, Pat Kane, musician, columnist, and campaigner, Gordon McIntyre Kemp, founder of Believe in Scotland. He was Business for Scotland before that, I believe.
That's right.
Marlene Halliday for Pensioners for Independence,
On the
author James
pension.
Robertson, Jane McAllister, who's a filmmaker and campaigner, Ross Greer, MSP from the Scottish Greens, Iona Soper from Scottish CND, and Gordon Martin, RMT Scotland's organiser.
Oh, I didn't realise we trade unionists there. I know, good.
Mhm. I did see the big picture. And it had a couple of friends of Ungagged in the front line next to the First Minister, and Richie Venton at one end, and Iona Fife from the other end. So
Nice
Ungagged
one.
was represented in spirit, um, if not in fact. Well, I think we'll draw it to an end there. We're back. See, first episode of the season. We are changing to a fortnightly schedule, so we will not have an episode recording next week, but we will in 2 weeks' time from you. So hopefully you bear with us in our new lineup. So you can find all our podcasts at leftungagged.org as well as written articles, and you can also sign up for our free newsletter. If you've anything you'd want us to talk about on Holyrude Ungagged, you can tweet us at _ungagged, #Holyrude Ungagged, or send in an email, ungaggedleft@gmail.com, putting Holyrude Ungagged in the subject line. You also feel free to get in contact in any of social media platforms in order to join our thriving Signal community. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please give us 5 stars in whatever platform you use. So until then, have fun, be good, and be lucky.
Bye.
Well, 10 years before I saw the light of morning, well, a comradeship of heroes was laid. From every corner of the world was sailing the 15th International Brigade. Well, they came to stand beside the Spanish people to try to stand the rising fascist tides. Franco's eyes were powerful and wealthy. Frank Ryan's looking from the other side. Well, even the olives of leaving was a battle for Madrid thundered on. Put hope against the force of evil, and brotherhood against the fascist clan. Viva la Quinta Brigada, no passerà the pleasure made them fight. And the Lances the choir on the hillside. That is all remember and tonight. Bobby Hilliard was a church-of-iron pastor from Killarney across the Pyrenees and came. From Terry came the brave young Christian brother, Simon's training from the fight in Spain. Tommy Bute, 17, died in Tagova. Ruffy and he learned to hold the gun. From Dublin to the Villa del Rio, he fought his eye beneath the Spanish sun. Viva la Quinta Brigada, no passer on the pleasure made them fight. And the Lances the choir on the hillside. Let us all remember them tonight. Many Irishmen, they heard the call of Franco. Joined Hitler and joined Mussolini too. Propaganda from the pulpits and newspaper helped them zombies who enlist the blue shirt through. Well, the word came from the church support the Nazis. Fucking Nazis! For a medical anti-bearers once again. When the picket blast the blue shut down in Galway, they sailed this was the Carlos Bay. Viva la Quinta Brigada, no passer on the pleasure made them fight. And the Lances the choir on the hillside. Let us all remember them tonight. The song is a tribute to Frank Ryan, Kid Conway, Anthony Coney too, Heather Daly, Charlie Regan and Hugh Bonner. Though many died, I can't name but a few. Blazer Brown and Danny Doyle and Charlie Donnelly, Lim Tomlinson and Jim Strenny from the Falls, Jack Doughty, Tommy Patton and Frank Conroy, Jim Foley, Tony Fox and Dick O'Neill. And viva la Quinta Brigada, lo passerà the pleasure made them fight. And the Lances the choir on the hillside. And let us all remember them tonight. But viva la Quinta Thank you very much, folks. We'll see you after the break.